Fear in the crowd. The great cafeteria of Orion Station was never silent. Voices of 100 different species echoed between the high metal walls. Plates clattered, cups hissed with strange alien drinks, and the hum of translation devices filled the air. Every table was packed, every seat taken, food trays piled high, laughter mixing with arguments. But in the very center of the room, there was a strange sight. One table had space, too much space. On one side sat a girl, quiet, pale, and still. Beside her was an empty chair, always empty, as if guarded by an invisible wall. The aliens whispered to each other, their eyes sliding toward the girl and then away quickly. Her skin glowed faintly, almost like light trapped under the surface. Her eyes shone in an unnatural way, as if carrying secrets no one wished to touch. No one spoke to her. No one dared to sit beside her. Some called her cursed. Others said she carried death in her shadow. And still she came every day, tray in her hands, sitting down silently, waiting, hoping perhaps, though she never showed it. Around her, the cafeteria bent like a tide. Crowds shifted, seats filled, but never that one place beside her. A group of reptilian traders entered, their scales gleaming in the harsh light. They spotted the empty chair and laughed among themselves, but as they drew near, their laughter faded, their steps slowed. One of them rubbed his arm nervously, another looked sick. Without a word they turned and moved to another table, their tails flicking in discomfort. The empty chair remained untouched, glowing with the weight of silence. Two avian scholars, feathers bright and robes flowing, tried once, only once, to sit near her. They lasted 3 breaths before one dropped his food and clutched his chest. The other staggered up, wings trembling, and they both fled without a backward glance. That day the cafeteria used with new rumors. The girl was dangerous, her very presence a poison. Even the bravest stayed away after that. Servers passed her table carefully. They placed food without looking at her, as if eye contact alone would burn them. When her lips whispered a small thank you, they hurried off without reply. She would eat in silence, though often her food grew cold before she touched it. Every sip of her drink was careful, slow, as if she tried to make herself smaller, as if being invisible might protect her from the weight of so many eyes. Sometimes she looked up. Her gaze wandered over the full tables, the crowds of friends laughing, arguing, sharing stories of distant stars. And then her eyes dropped again. Her shoulders tightened. She knew she did not belong. She knew no one wanted her near, but still she returned, every day. It was better to sit among them, even in silence, than to sit alone in her quarters. One young alien, a child with thin silver skin, once walked too close. He looked at the empty chair, curious, his small hand reaching as if to pull it out. The moment he touched it, his mother screamed. She rushed forward, yanking him back, her eyes filled with terror. The child cried, confused, but the mother only dragged him away. The cafeteria went quiet for a heartbeat, then sound returned, louder, harsher. The girl bowed her head, hiding her face behind her hair. The whispers grew again. The curse, they said, the curse is real, yet the girl was no monster. Her name was Leora. Though few cared to know it, she had done nothing to hurt them, nothing at all. But fear does not wait for truth. Fear grows in shadows, fear grows in whispers, and fear had built a wall around her, a wall no one dared to cross. Day after day, the pattern repeated. She entered, the crowd parted, she sat, and the chair beside her stayed empty. It became part of the station's rhythm, as steady as the engines that kept it alive. Strangers who visited noticed, asked questions. The answers were always the same. Stay away from her, they were told. She is dangerous, cursed, unlucky. And so the legend spread, even to those who had never seen her. But Leora never protested. She never shouted, never cried in public. She carried her silence like a cloak. Her eyes remained calm, though her hands sometimes trembled on her tray. Her loneliness was a wound that no one saw. And the emptiness beside her was both a prison and a shield. It kept others away, but it also kept her safe from their hatred. Still, in the deepest part of her heart, she longed for someone, anyone. Someone who would not flinch, not flee, not whisper of curses. Someone who might see her not as a danger, but as a person. That hope was small, fragile, almost broken. But it was enough to bring her back to the cafeteria again and again, sitting in silence, waiting, while the crowd moved like water around a stone, and the chair beside her waited too, empty, untouched, daring anyone brave enough to take it. the arrival of the human engineer. Orion Station was not used to humans. They were rare travelers in this sector, strange beings of soft skin and reckless courage. Other species spoke of them with a mix of curiosity and unease. Humans had a reputation, not for power, not for numbers, but for something harder to explain. They were unpredictable. They did not bend to fear as easily as others. Some called it bravery, others called it madness. On that day, the station announced the arrival of a small transport ship. It carried supplies, spare parts, and a handful of crew for engineering support. Among them was a man named Daniel Carter. He was not a soldier, not a leader, only an engineer, but sometimes the quiet ones change the story the most. Daniel stepped into the cafeteria for the first time. He carried a tool bag slung over one shoulder, his uniform still creased from travel. His eyes scanned the crowded room with easy confidence. He was used to noise, to mess, to the chaos of machines and people together. Yet here, in the heart of alien culture, he stood out like fire in the dark. Conversations paused when he walked past. Some aliens stared, others whispered. Humans were always watched, always measured. Would this one be like the stories? Would he be reckless, foolish, brave? Daniel didn't seem to notice, or maybe he simply didn't care. His gaze drifted across the rows of tables. Every seat was full, except for one. That chair, that silent chair, beside the girl no one dared approach. Daniel's brow lifted slightly. It was strange to him. In a place so crowded, why would one seat remain open? He moved closer. The air grew tense. Aliens who had been eating fell silent, their eyes wide. Some leaned back, as if distance alone could shield them from what was about to happen. Daniel walked straight to the table, straight to the girl, straight to the empty chair. The girl, Leora, felt it before she saw him. Her heart quickened. Her hands froze above her untouched food. When she looked up, her glowing eyes met his steady human gaze. No fear, no sickness, no hesitation. He was different. Different in a way she had never seen before. Gasps echoed through the cafeteria as Daniel pulled the chair out. Metal legs scraped against the floor, a sound that cut like a blade through the heavy silence. Every alien in the room seemed to hold their breath. No one had ever dared to sit there, not once, not in all the time she had been on the station. And now, this human, this stranger, was lowering himself in to the forbidden seat as if it was nothing at all. Leora whispered, her voice barely more than air. "You shouldn't sit here." Her words trembled, half warning, half plea. Daniel only gave her a small, curious smile. "Why not?" he asked, simple, fearless. Around them, the crowd waited for disaster. Some expected the human to faint, others expected him to choke, but nothing happened. He sat, calm, steady, alive. The cursed energy that drove others away seemed to slide off him like rain off stone. The silence stretched, heavier with each second. Leora lowered her eyes, confusion breaking through her fear. No one had ever stayed this close, not without pain, not without panic. Yet this human sat as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her voice shook when she said, "They all fear me." Daniel leaned forward slightly, his smile faint but warm. "I don't scare that easy." The words echoed in her chest. Simple words but powerful. Words that cracked the heavy wall of loneliness she had carried for so long. For the first time in endless days, Leora felt something spark inside her. Not just surprise, not just relief, but the smallest flicker of hope. The cafeteria remained silent. Dozens of eyes watched the human and the girl. Whispers spread like fire in dry grass. No one sits beside her. Humans are insane. Something terrible will happen. Yet Daniel ate calmly, talking softly, as if nothing was unusual at all. And in that moment, something shifted in the air of Orion Station. The curse had been challenged. The rule had been broken. The seat was no longer empty, and everyone knew. Nothing would ever be the same again. Breaking the silence, the cafeteria held its breath. Forks and spoons froze halfway to mouths. Alien eyes fixed on the impossible scene. The cursed girl was no longer alone. The forbidden chair was no longer empty. And the human sat there as if nothing in the galaxy was unusual. Leora could know. Ott stopped staring. Her glowing eyes widened, confusion fighting with fear inside her. Every other being on the station had fled her presence, some with sickness, some with terror. But this man, this human, sat calm, steady, untouched. Why, she thought, why him, why now? Her lips parted, the words slipping out before she could hold them. You shouldn't sit here, she whispered again, softer, her voice trembling like glass about to break. Daniel turned his head, his brown eyes studying her without flinching. Everyone keeps saying that, he said, voice low, almost casual. Why? The question struck her like a blade. No one had ever asked, no one had ever wanted to know the reason. They only avoided her, cursed her, whispered behind her back. Now a human demanded an answer. Her hands shook under the table. You don't understand, she murmured. I am dangerous. Across the room, an alien dropped his tray in shock, the clatter ringing like thunder. Whispers rose, waves of fear rippling through the crowd, but Daniel did not move, did not leave. Instead, he leaned closer, voice steady, calm as stone. Dangerous how? Leora's chest tightened. She wanted to tell him, wanted to push him away before it was too late, but her words caught. Her throat closed. Every time she tried to explain her curse, her isolation, fear stopped her. What if he left too? What if he looked at her with the same horror as the rest? Daniel waited, patient, his eyes locked on hers, and then, for the first time in her life, she saw no disgust, no fear, only curiosity. Something inside her cracked. The silence she had carried for so long felt heavier than ever. Her voice broke free. My name is Leora, she whispered. Her name, spoken aloud, sounded strange to her own ears, as if she had forgotten it. He nodded slowly. Daniel, he said, engineer, from Earth. The moment her name met his, something unseen stirred in the air, not in the cafeteria, not in the crowd, but in the space between them. Leora felt a pulse, faint but real, as if the universe itself had noticed the two of them. Her heart pounded faster. Was this the start of disaster or the start of something greater? Nearby, an alien elder leaned to another and whispered harshly, "This will end badly. The human does not know what she is." But even as fear spread, no one dared interrupt. Every being in the room became witness to the impossible sight of a cursed girl speaking with a human who should not have survived her presence. Leora lowered her gaze again, her voice unsteady. They fear me because they feel me, she said. My energy. It pushes into them, it breaks their balance, it makes them sick, it makes them run. She swallowed hard. I don't want it. I never asked for it, but it follows me. It never stops. Daniel listened, expression serious now. Yet I don't feel it, he said softly, more to himself than to her. That's strange. The words drew another ripple through the cafeteria. Aliens leaned closer, unable to help themselves. The idea of a human resisting what they all feared was more terrifying than the curse itself. Leora's eyes rose to meet his again, desperate, searching. Why you? She asked, almost a plea. Why are you not afraid? Daniel's lips curved, just slightly. Maybe, he said. Humans are built for strange things. The silence that followed was not empty. It was heavy, alive, charged with something new. The crowd no longer saw just a cursed girl and a reckless human. They saw the beginning of a story that might shake more than just the cafeteria. They saw the first crack in a wall of fear that had stood for too long, and Leora, for the first time since she arrived at Orion Station, felt something she had thought lost forever, hope. The hidden truth. The cafeteria slowly returned to noise, but it was not the same. Every laugh was forced, every whisper sharp. The sight of the humans sitting beside the cursed girl spread through the station like fire through dry air. Rumors twisted into new shapes. Some said the human was immune, some said he was reckless. Others whispered that maybe he was cursed too, but none could ignore what they had seen. Daniel finished his meal calmly, as if sitting beside Leora was the most normal thing in the galaxy. Leora barely touched her food, her eyes fixed on him with a mix of fear and wonder. No one had ever lasted this long near her. No one had dared to ask her questions, and now this human sat in silence beside her, breaking a law unspoken but unbroken for so long. She finally whispered, her voice shaking. You should not be here. Daniel leaned closer, his voice calm. And yet here I am. He looked into her glowing eyes. What is it really? Why does everyone fear you? Her chest rose and fell faster, her hands gripping the edge of the table. For a moment she wanted to lie. Wanted to tell him nothing, to keep the burden locked away, but something in his steady gaze broke through her wall. He was not like the others. Maybe he deserved to know. My people are rare, she said quietly. We carry energy inside us, energy that others cannot endure. She paused, her voice trembling. When I was born, my world tried to control it, but they failed. The station brought me here, told me I would be safe. But I am not safe. I am a danger, even when I do nothing. Daniel's brows pulled together. Energy? Like radiation? Lyora shook her head slowly. No, it is not radiation. It is deeper. It is alive. It reaches into others. It tears their balance apart. Her voice dropped to a whisper. And the truth is, the station keeps me here because they are afraid of what I might be seeing. But Daniel frowned. They keep you here? Not protect you? Her eyes shimmered with pain. I am not a guest, Daniel. I am a prisoner. The words hit like a storm. Around them, a few aliens stirred nervously as if afraid she had said too much. One reptilian elder turned sharply, his gaze fixed on her, then on the human. Daniel noticed it, his instincts sharpening. This was not just about fear or rumors. There was something more, something controlled, something hidden. Why hasn't anyone told me this? Daniel asked. No one talks about it. No one even warns us. We just hear curses and whispers. Leora's eyes darkened. Because truth is more dangerous than fear, she said. Fear keeps them away, but truth would make them ask questions, questions the station does not want answered. The air around them thickened. Daniel felt it now, faint but real. A pressure, a hum, like static crawling across his skin. It was her energy, bleeding into the air, yet instead of fear, he felt only a strange pull, like gravity, like a call deep inside his chest. He clenched his fists under the table, steadying himself. This was no curse, no simple accident. It was power, raw and untamed. Lyora lowered her head, her voice nearly breaking. You should leave me, Daniel, before they decide you are too close. Her words trembled, but behind them was something else, not just warning, but fear. Fear not of herself, but of them, the station, the watchers, the ones who kept her here. Daniel followed her gaze and saw them. Uniformed guards near the door, watching too closely. Scientists in pale coats, whispering, scribbling notes into glowing tablets. They weren't just afraid of her, they were observing her, studying her, and now they were watching him too. Something inside Daniel hardened. He realized this was no accident, the empty chair, the rumors, the silence. It was all a cage built not of metal, but of fear. And now he had walked straight into it. The human engineer leaned closer, his voice low and steady. Aura, he whispered. They fear you because you're dangerous, but maybe you're not dangerous to me. Maybe that's why I'm here. Her glowing eyes widened, a flicker of hope fighting against years of despair. But before she could speak, the cafeteria lights flickered. The hum of the station's engines wavered. A deep alarm rolled through the walls. Warning lights bathed the room in red. Lyora's breath caught. Daniel's jaw tightened. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. And as chaos began to rise, Daniel knew one thing for certain. Whatever truth the station was hiding about this girl, it was about to break free. Danger strikes. The alarm screamed through Orion Station. Red lights flashed across the cafeteria walls, painting every alien face in blood-colored shadows. The crowd rose in panic, voices colliding into a storm of fear. Reactor breach, the announcement echoed. Containment unstable, all personnel evacuate. Trays crashed to the floor, chairs toppled, wings and claws and tails tangled as dozens of species pushed toward the exits. But in the center of the chaos, Lyora sat frozen. Her eyes glowed brighter, trembling with something more than fear. It was recognition. She knew this alarm, this sound, this danger. She had felt it before, long ago. Daniel stood, his chair scraping back against the floor. Reactor breach, he muttered, his engineer's mind already racing. If the reactor failed, the entire station would tear itself apart. He looked at Lyora, her hands pressed against the table, her breath fast, sharp. You know something, he said, voice urgent, her lips parted, her whisper almost drowned by the alarm. They cannot fix it without me. Daniel's heart slammed against his chest. What do you mean? She rose slowly, her glowing aura flickering, stronger now, brighter. My energy. It was made to stabilize cores like this, but they never let me near. They feared me too much. They kept me away, locked me away, even while the station lives because of what I carry. The word struck him like a hammer, so this was the truth. She was not a curse, she was a key, and the station had hidden it. Daniel grabbed her wrist, steady, firm. Then we go, he said. We go now. The guards at the door stepped forward, panic in their eyes. You cannot take her, one barked, his voice harsh. She is not allowed near the core. But the floor shook beneath them, a deep rumble rising through the metal bones of the station. A second alarm roared louder. Critical failure, radiation spike, containment collapse. The crowd screamed, flooding past the guards. The station itself was dying, and still they tried to block her path. Lyora's glow flared, brighter, sharper, her energy spilling like fire from her skin. The guards staggered back, clutching their heads. She turned to Daniel, her eyes wide with fear and pain. If I go, I could lose control. If I lose control, I could burn everything. Daniel's grip tightened. Or you could save everyone, he said, his voice steady. I'll be there, I'll hold the line. Whatever this energy is, it doesn't break me. His gaze locked with hers, unwavering. You're not alone anymore. The words struck deep. For years she had carried her curse in silence. Now for the first time someone chose to stand beside her. Her chest heaved, her breath caught, and she nodded. Together they pushed past the guards, who stumbled, too weak to stop them. The corridors shook with every step. Smoke poured from vents. Sparks rained from shattered lights. Crew members ran in every direction, but none dared block their path. They could feel the weight of her presence, the dangerous light bleeding from her body, and the human who walked in it without fear. As they neared the reactor doors, Daniel felt the hum grow stronger. Her energy was alive. It pulsed like a second heartbeat against his skin. It should have broken him, but instead, it had fueled him. His mind sharpened, his focus clear. He realized then, maybe humans weren't just resistant. Maybe they were the missing piece, the balance her kind was never meant to carry alone. The reactor chamber loomed ahead. The great doors glowed with warning lights, sealed shut. Beyond them, the heart of the station screamed in agony. Daniel looked at Leora, her glow now blazing, her eyes burning with fear and determination. Are you ready? He asked. Her voice shook, but her answer was steady. With you, maybe. He placed his hand on the door panel. For a heartbeat, the chaos outside faded. It was just the two of them, a cursed girl and a reckless human, about to walk into the fire together. And as the doors hissed open, the heat hit them like a storm. The truth of Leora's curse, her power, and the fate of the station waited inside. And Daniel knew, once they crossed that line, there would be no going back. Into the core. The reactor doors slid open with a scream of metal. A wave of heat and radiation rolled out like fire, making the air shimmer. The chamber was alive with chaos, alarms flashing red, engines howling in pain, pipes burst, spraying steam, sparks rained from broken circuits. The massive reactor pulsed at the center, glowing too bright, its energy twisting like a storm about to break free. Daniel staggered back for half a breath, shielding his eyes. He had seen engines on the edge of meltdown, but never like this. This was no simple machine failing. This was something alive tearing itself apart. He felt it deep in his bones. The reactor was seconds away from ripping the station in half. Beside him, Leora gasped. Her glow flared brighter than ever, her energy rising in answer to the storm within the reactor. Her knees bent as if the pull dragged her forward, her voice cracked with terror. It's calling to me. Daniel grabbed her shoulder, steadying her. Then answer it, he said, his voice fierce. You told me you were made for this, so do it. Her eyes filled with fear. If I release too much, I'll burn this place down. If I lose control, I'll kill you. The chamber shook violently, the floor splitting with cracks of light. Daniel pulled her closer, his voice sharp. Then don't lose control. I'm here. You focus on the energy. I'll handle the machine. He sprinted toward the reactor controls, his boots pounding against the trembling floor. Panels sparked, screens shattered, but his hands flew over the systems. His engineer's mind raced, cutting through the chaos. The reactor core needed stabilization, but no circuit, no shield could hold it, only her. Behind him, Leora stepped into the storm. Her body shook, her glowing eyes blazing white. She raised her hands and the air bent, energy pouring from her like a tide. The reactor screamed in answer, its wild pulse syncing with hers. The sound of two storms colliding. Daniel shouted over the roar. "Steady, Leora, match its rhythm, don't fight it, guide it." She trembled, her glow flickering like fire in the wind. "I can't, it's too strong." Her voice broke, pain lacing every word. "It's breaking me." He slammed his hand on the manual override, sparks exploding against his arm. "Then lean on me," he shouted. "Whatever this energy is, it doesn't crush me. Let me take the weight." Her eyes widened, her breath caught. No one had ever said that before. No one had ever offered to share what she carried. She closed her eyes, her voice a whisper. "Then hold me." The floor cracked beneath her feet as her glow burst outward. The wave of power would have thrown any alien to the ground. But Daniel stepped into it, his body shaking, his skin burning. And yet he held on. The energy bit into him, but instead of breaking, it flowed. Rough him into the controls, into the reactor. For a moment, he was the bridge between chaos and balance. Leora screamed, her power pouring out like a river too wide for its banks. Daniel's arms wrapped around her, anchoring her in the storm. His voice cut through the roar. "You are not a curse. You are the cure. Now show them." Her glow surged, filling the reactor chamber. The wild storm of energy bent, slowed, steadied. The reactor's pulse slowed, syncing with her heartbeat. 1 second from meltdown became 1 second of silence. Then another, then another. The alarms faded. The red lights dimmed. The station groaned, but it held. Against all odds, it held. Daniel fell to one knee, his chest heaving, his body trembling from the strain, but his eyes lifted to her, still blazing with impossible light. She stood tall, her hands lowered slowly, the storm within her finally tamed. Her glow faded back to a soft shimmer, her voice shaking. I did it." Daniel forced a grin through his exhaustion. "No, we did it." But as the silence settled, both of them realized something else. The guards had followed, the scientists too, and now every one of them had seen what Leora truly was. Not a curse, not a prisoner, but a weapon. And a weapon that had just proven she needed a human to unlock her full power. Their victory had saved the station, but it had also painted a target on their backs. Humans are special. Silence filled the reactor chamber. The alarms were gone, the storm was quiet, and the station still lived. For a long moment, no one moved, no one breathed. Then the sound of footsteps echoed, slow, heavy, deliberate. The guards stepped forward, their weapons half raised. The scientists followed, their eyes glowing with cold calculation. Every gaze was locked on Leora, who still shimmered faintly with leftover light, and on the human who had dared to touch the untouchable. Daniel rose to his feet, his body shaking with exhaustion, but his stance unbroken. He knew the look in their eyes. It was not gratitude. It was not relief. It was hunger. They had seen power, and power always calls to chains. One of the commanders spoke, his voice sharp as steel. "You should not have interfered, human. The girl is not yours to guide. She is the property of the station." The word property burned the air. Leora flinched as if struck. Her glowing eyes dimmed with shame, with anger, with fear. Daniel stepped forward, putting himself between her and them. His voice was low but unshaken. "She's not property. She just saved every life on this station. You don't get to call her a curse anymore, and you don't get to cage her either." Gasps rippled through the watchers. No alien had ever spoken for her. No one had ever dared. But the human stood defiant, one man against a hall of species, and something in his voice made even the boldest hesitate. The commander sneered. "You don't understand what she is. That energy inside her is a weapon, and now we know. It can be controlled. With your kind human, she could be made unstoppable." Daniel's jaw tightened, his fists clenched. He understood then. This was why they had kept her alive, not out of mercy but out of greed. They wanted to use her, to harness her, and now they wanted to use him too. Leora's breath came fast, panic flickering in her eyes. Her voice trembled. "They will never let me go. Now that they've seen, they'll never stop." She looked at him, desperate. "You should run, Daniel, while you still can." But Daniel shook his head. "No," he said firmly. I sat in that chair because I wasn't afraid of you, and I'm not afraid of them either. His voice rose, carrying across the chamber. You call her dangerous, you call her cursed, but you all forgot something. If not for her, you'd all be dead. If not for us, this station would be dust. So maybe it's time you stop fearing her and start fearing us. The words struck like thunder. The crowd shivered, whispers spreading in waves. Humans. Different. Immune. Dangerous. For the first time, the aliens did not look at Leora with only fear. They looked at the human beside her, and in their eyes was something new, respect and terror. Leora stared at Daniel, her heart heavy, her chest trembling. No one had ever stood for her. No one had ever called her more than a curse. And now this human had turned her prison into proof of her worth. Her whisper broke through the silence. You changed everything. The commander's face hardened. This is not over, he growled. You may have saved the station, but you have started something far greater. And in those words was a promise and a threat. Daniel turned to Leora, his voice softer now, meant only for her. They can watch, they can whisper, they can plot. But they can't change what just happened. You're not alone anymore. Her glowing eyes shimmered, a tear sliding free. For the first time in her life, the cursed girl smiled, and in that smile was not just hope, but fire, a fire that would not die. As they walked out of the reactor chamber side by side, every gaze followed. No alien dared step in their way. The seat once empty was no longer empty. The wall of fear had cracked, and the galaxy had just learned a truth it was not ready to face. No alien dared sit beside her until the human engineer took the seat, and from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same.